So we're walking through one of the worst areas of the country in Baltimore. It was very treacherous. For the first time, I felt fear. And I asked Christ if he would get me out of there. My name is Minister Brashawn Clark. I was born in Havre de Grace, Maryland. When I was born, I was totally blind. The doctors at Johns Hopkins kind of wanted to use me as a guinea pig, but my mom ran into a really good doctor who said, no, let's just observe him. So they did. And after about a year and a half, God started giving me sight. The interesting thing about God giving me sight and the amount of sight that he gave me and continued to give me as I grew is he also allowed me to be born to two parents who raised me to be an atheist. And at the time, she was a professed atheist, registered communist in Canada before she came back to the States. And he was a member of the Nation of Islam and followed the Black Panther Party. And they rebelled against all forms of organized religion. And with that, one of the first books she read to me was the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, Das Kapital. And she would always highlight the quote in there, religion is the opiate of the masses. If you want to lead people blindly, just put God at the front of it and they will follow and they won't question God. That was my background. Yet my grandparents, my mom's parents, two just loving individuals, they were devoted Christians. They didn't force Christianity on me, but they let me see it in their lives, which was a blessing because we'd always say grace before we ate dinner, even though I was an atheist, and I would pray before I went to bed, even though I was an atheist. And when I went away to college, I continued those. I met a man who used to do soap operas. Very wealthy man who left the business because he gave his life to Christ. And he was touring colleges doing a play. He put together a one-person show on the entire New Testament. And I remember he and I got in a debate, and he was kind of frustrated with me because as an atheist, you learn the Bible better than most Christians, and you're able to debate it because you're looking at it intellectually. Something that he said stuck with me. It didn't cause me to change then, but it planted a seed. And he was talking about the great wager. And he said there was a Christian and an atheist, and they were standing there. And the man who was an atheist said, how can you believe in a God you don't see, that doesn't exist? And he said, well, if I give my life to Christ and he doesn't exist, when I die, I end up where you are. But if you don't give your life to Christ and he does exist, when you die, you won't end up where I am. And that stuck with me. I couldn't shake it. And even when I would argue against other Christians, that would be in the back of my mind. It was 2004 when I was hanging out with my dad in Baltimore. And that morning we woke up and he was fiending. He was a junkie still. He's not now, thank God, but he was a junkie still. My dad was looking to get high. We were walking through an area of Baltimore that was pretty treacherous. He had to go find some more, and the guy that was helping him find it, they went back to his house and they sat up in the bathroom and they got high. And during that whole time walking through those areas, I had never been afraid before. I had been there before, just never been afraid. But for the first time, I felt fear, and I asked Christ if he would get me out of there, whether he took my dad's life or not. If he would get me out of there, I would just take what I needed to get home. Nothing more, nothing less. I would take what I needed to get home, and I would leave, and I would not look back. Thank God he spared my dad's life. He spared my life, but I never looked back. I had to run and tell everybody about this Jesus who I now serve, who spared me, who has brought me from so far to here. And that really is what sparked me reaching out to other people. And then I talked to my mom and I let her know, which was difficult for me. I let her know that I had given my life to Christ, and she told me she had as well. It gave basis, it gave merit, it gave legs to this Christian existence. It was like, all right, if he got to my mom, he's real. And I became a deacon, and then I answered my call to the ministry. I just know God has some amazing things in store, and I love him, and I thank him for the trials that I've been through. And if it hadn't been for the trials, I would not embrace the joy. My name is Minister Brashawn Hakeem Clark, and this is my story.